Welcome to live Q&A here on the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle. My name is Michael Bridgman, and you, my friends, are fantastic and phenomenal business owners looking to get rocking and rolling here and crank up your results. So let's pop over to our next question. So here we go. Next one is from Chuck. He says, what are some roadblocks I can be prepared for when growing my company? All right. So without knowing too much of the detail about Chuck's exact company, there could be a lot of different roadblocks. But I'm going to give you guys the few that I know of that are going to stand in the way of most companies. First off is going to be, how do you scale? How do you scale your company? Right? That's going to be a big, huge question mark that you've got to ask. If you're a solopreneur right now, so let's say you run a coaching company, or let's say you run a consulting company or a services company, it's just you. All right. How you scale is basically by going, okay, and you can see I was actually brainstorming about this behind me right now. That's not that whole atom looking thing isn't done yet, but I was brainstorming some concepts. And as a CEO of your company and you're just a solopreneur, you're doing kind of everything. So when you want to expand, you want to start going, okay, what are the roles that I'm really good at? And what are the roles that I stink at that I should be delegating off to other people? And so one of the key things to do is to start to identify, what are the hats that I want to be wearing? What are the hats that I should be wearing? And at what stage do I start to delegate this stuff out? So if you want to scale your company, Chuck, and I don't know Chuck very well, so I can't speak to exactly where he's sitting, but you really want to know what role you want to play in your company, what you're best at, how you're best suited to serve your business, and then start delegating. I call them the items. So you either delegate, automate, or you eliminate. You ate them. Okay, so you ate them. You figure out what the items are of your business, and you start to actively pursue those things. Because over a short period of time, you can actually get a lot more done. You can serve a lot more clients if you just start delegating some of the stuff off or eliminating it completely. Okay. The other thing is that you want to eliminate scope creep. Okay. So you can see me, I was writing some notes here right behind my head. Scope creep is really a dangerous element as a solopreneur or as somebody who's providing services. And what I mean by scope creep is that you have a project, okay, and the scope of the project is X. What happens is back and forth with the client, especially if that project stretches out over some time, 3 months, 6 months, that type of thing. You wind up being in a position where the client maybe adds on a little bit. Hey, could you also just include this? Could you also just include that? And the scope of the work starts to creep outwards, right? Think of it like a pond. You've got your pond, the framework of what you want to do, what you're supposed to be doing with this client. You've got your framework here. What happens is the client keeps pouring in some water into the pond and going, could you do a little bit more of this? Could I add a little bit more of that? Hey, I know we said we were going to do this 3 months ago, but now things have changed a little bit internally. Could we shift it to this instead? And whatever this is less efficient for you. So it takes up more space and more room on your schedule. And what winds up happening is the scope of the work and the project creeps outwards, and you wind up getting really inefficient and ineffective with your time. And the biggest downfall of this is a little bit of resentment. Sometimes on both sides of the equation, right? You're less efficient at what you said you were going to do because the project has changed. So the client's not as happy. And you're not as happy because the scope of what you're supposed to do has shifted and changed. And now you're not as comfortable doing the project. You're not as excited about it, et cetera, et cetera. So scope creep, you guys, is a really big challenge when you want to grow your company to make sure that whatever you're doing stays within the frameworks of what you've offered. Okay. The other thing, cash flow. So as you're doing and expanding these things, when companies are in their growth stage, and this is really for most small businesses, this is anything south of $1 million in annual revenue. Okay. You can have expenses that pop up. You know, the air conditioning and stuff like that at my brick and mortar business here, it had to get fixed. That was $60,000. Done, gone. Woo, take it. That's a cash flow challenge. Now, thankfully, I run a north of 7-figure business and we can figure it out. But the fact is that those cash flow challenges pop up. So when you're growing your company, getting a cash flow chart done, understanding where you're at, and if your revenue keeps going, you know, and have different versions. What if a revenue goes down a little bit? What if a revenue goes up? What if a revenue stays relatively the same? have a cash flow chart figured out so that you know when some of these big bills can come in and be dealt with and paid, and when the right time is to expand your company. Okay. And then the last thing is what I call RES. Okay. This is a huge problem for small business owners. Huge problem. RES. What does this stand for? This stands for Restless Entrepreneur Syndrome. Also known as, squirrel, right? We call it the shiny object syndrome, right? This can be one of the biggest killers for entrepreneurial-minded people. They say they're being artistic and they're following their whims and everything else. Well, my friends, right? I have used the analogy many times before that when you see those guys that spin plates, they spin plates on the stage, they get one plate spinning really, really, really well before they set up the second one, right? Then they go back and forth and they spin both plates, spin both plates, spin both plates, spin both plates. And then they go from the 2 to the 3. So this right here, my friends, is before you start expanding and adding another product or adding another line of things or starting another company, really make sure that yours is working as best as it possibly can. And a big part of that is putting in some really thorough SOPs. Okay. One of the ways of combating Restless Entrepreneur Syndrome is to have wonderful people that can run your company for you so that you can just indulge this a little bit. So you can go have some fun with your Restless Entrepreneur Syndrome and look at some new projects and look at some other cool stuff. And to do that, you need to have a team, and a team needs SOPs. So if you're doing anything in your company repetitively, my advice to you is early on in the process, when you don't have an abundance of clients, when you have a little bit more time in your schedule, build out your standard operating procedures. Even if it's just in rough note form to begin with, you can always have a VA help you make it look pretty. My assistant Isha, she does this stuff for me all the time. She makes my messy scribbles of this leads to that leads to this. She makes them pretty. I love her for it. But the fact is you want to have a set of standard operating procedures so that when you get your RES, when you get your Restless Entrepreneur Syndrome, and you start looking at other things, you have an existing business that's operating effectively. It's doing its thing. It's good at it. And when you're good at running a business, it will free up time in your schedule. I am a perfect example of somebody who built a great business. It's successful. It runs, it operates. Everybody knows their job. They all love being here. They are following our standard operating procedures every single day to fulfill what our clients need. And that allows me the flexibility to pursue other ventures like being on here with you. So that is my answer to Chuck's question about some of the obstacles that you're going to face when you're growing your company. I hope you guys got great value out of today. This was fun. So my friends, if you got good value out of this, please join us in the Marketing Wizards Inner Circle Facebook group. It's a free group. I go live in there all the time. Plus, you can take our 5 days for 1 year of marketing bootcamp that's right inside that Facebook group. So you can go over there and access that. And if you are looking for help with your marketing, book a Compass call, right? So you can reach out to myself within the group or reach out to me personally here, book a Compass call. Compass call is basically a 45-minute chat where you and I sit down, we find out where you would love to be with your company. You'd absolutely love to build a company that's doing this and where you currently are. And we find out how to get the right trajectory to get you there. So I call it a Compass call because it's often needing to have got to auto-correct a little bit to where you'd love to be. And we book these calls all the time and we find out if there's anything that we can do to help people, of course, right? It's a great way of us showing what services we can provide companies to help them grow. Shameless plug there. But more than that, it's just a great way to figure out, okay, this is where I'd love to be. This is where I am. How do I get there? What's the jump I can take and get a roadmap to that type of success? And until next time, I have been Michael Bridgman. You have been awesome. So go out there, enchant your audience, make some magic happen. And this has been another episode of the Q&A session for Marketing Wizards Inner Circle. Ciao for now.